Hello everyone, so today we're going to be doing a reading challenge. A while ago, I attempted a 24-hour reading challenge, and I don't think it worked out, but I used to do 12-hour reading challenges a couple years ago, where I would just pick a bunch of stuff to read, and read for 12 hours, and not be on my phone or waste time or anything. I would just read. So that's what we're going to be doing today, and I have a little bit of a TBR right here on things I want to get to. So first is Devilman vs. Hades. This was the TBR jar pick from the punishment jar. I attempted to read Devilman Grimoire. The first volume was awful, so I gave up on that very quickly. But this one, I think, is going to be like a sequel, kind of, to the original Devilman series. So I'm going to try that one out. If it's awful, I'll just drop that one as well. This is not a manga. This is a novel. It's a horror novel. It is not the novelization of Chainsaw Man, even though it's called My Heart is a Chainsaw. Yeah, I might read that. I started it last night, very briefly, listening to the audiobook. So I might go on a walk later, maybe, if I decide to go outside and read that. Then I have two more TBR jar picks, Onward Towards Our Noble Deaths, which I also started yesterday. I'm about a third of the way through. It's a very easy read. I thought it would be more difficult, but it's very easy. So I'd like to finish that one. And then Helter Skelter, which I'll try it out. We'll see. And then obviously it won't take me 12 hours to read those. So this is the other manga I have on my immediate TBR. I basically just put the volumes here and then pick up what I want to read. Summertime Rendering, I'm waiting for the last two volumes and then I'll read that. I want to read A Tropical Fish Yearns for Snow. Sorry, the lighting is bad. Now that I haven't completed, so I might read that today or a couple volumes of that. And then I have some other random stuff down here. But yeah, I have a timer here, and we're gonna do the timer correctly this time and not the wrong way like I did it last time. I did something like this. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and start the timer. It will count down, and now I have 12 hours to read some manga and books. Okay, so here's what the timer is looking like right now. It's been almost 2 hours. And I feel like I'm already behind, but whatever. So I finished Onward Towards Our Noble Deaths, and I know I just said that it was an easy read, and then immediately after I started reading it, it became not an easy read. So this follows a group of soldiers during World War II. It's pretty much a criticism of the war, just like many, many other World War II stories. What I really like about this is the art. So Shigeru Mizuki has a really cartoony art style, which some people might not like. I think it's pretty good. But then you have moments in here where the art style switches to something more realistic. There's more shadows and darkness. So that creates a kind of tonal shift, which makes what you're reading feel more serious. It also gets pretty brutal, and even in Shigeru Mizuki's cartoony art style, it's still very brutal and gory. I also like how this shows moments of quiet during wartime, if that makes sense. So obviously, they're not fighting all the time. There's some times where they're just sitting, complaining about how they don't have enough food to eat or water to drink. So I think those are also important moments of wartime to be showing and portraying, because a lot of the time you just see the fighting, which there's definitely lots of fighting in here. It's just kind of a different portrayal of suffering, if that makes sense. So yeah, I definitely enjoyed this. I gave it 5 stars, and I would recommend it for sure if it's something you're interested in. And then after that, I read something very different. So I read Devilman vs. Hades Volume 1. This was definitely better than Devilman Grimoire. It's still not great. The art is amazing. However, there are some panels where you can't tell what's happening because it's so detailed. I'm not sure if it's the printing or the actual art or what's going on, but it's too detailed to even see what's happening sometimes, but other times the art is really amazing. So this is kind of a sequel to Devilman. It's also a crossover with Mazinger Z, apparently, which I don't know anything about. But yeah, it's okay so far. Not amazing. There's a weird cat girl that was introduced for some reason. I don't know what's happening there, but it's alright so far. Not awful. So now I'm going to keep reading Devilman vs. Hades. However, I also have to go to Barnes & Noble to pick up some books. So I'll probably vlog that as well. So yeah, I'll update you guys in a little bit. way too long in there. I'm wasting a ton of time that I could be using to read, but I did go to Barnes & Noble and I bought not any manga. I looked at the manga, but I bought The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson. This is a horror novel. I recently read another horror novel by this author and I loved it. So I'm excited to see what happens in this one, because the other one, I couldn't sleep for like 3 days. And that never happens to me when reading books. Let's see if this one is as scary as that one. And the other one I got is Carrie Soto is Back. This is by the same author as The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which I really enjoyed when I read it a couple years ago. And this one seems like the same kind of vibe. It's about a famous tennis player who's coming back. I think she retired and then she's coming back for another thing. It sounds boring, but the other book I read by this author was a similar premise, kind of. It was about a famous person, and it was really interesting. So I'd like to read this one pretty soon here. This one just came out, so hopefully in my next update, I'll have actually read something instead of buying things, because that defeats the purpose of a reading vlog if all I'm doing is buying things. So now I'm gonna go home. Okay, I'm back with another update. This is what the timer's at right now. I wasted so much time book shopping. But I continued or attempted to continue reading Devilman vs. Hades. So I started volume 2. I very quickly realized I don't care about this. So this is like a crossover with Mazinger Z, as I mentioned earlier, and I didn't know anything about it, and in this volume it feels like you need to know about it. So I did some Googling. Seems like some mech giant robot thing. And I just don't care what's happening anymore. It just feels like these two buff dudes are fighting over women, and there's a cat girl and a talking crow, and yeah, that's it. And I just don't care. So I stopped reading it halfway through the volume. And yeah, these Devilman spin-off manga things have not been going well, so I'm just gonna get rid of these. I'll keep my regular Devilman volumes, the classic collection, but these spin-off things are not worth reading in my opinion. And then after that, I read volume 1 and volume 2 of A Tropical Fish Yearns for Snow. This is a 9-volume Yuri manga. It's a high school Yuri manga, very wholesome. There's some miscommunication, but it's cute. My problem here is that I like the side character more than both of the main characters. She's just way more fun and interesting than the other ones. So I'm basically reading it for her. But these volumes are super short. They're very easy reads. I can read them in like 15-20 minutes. So I'm going to keep reading some more of this and then maybe pick up some other volumes I have on my TBR. Okay, so here is what the timer is looking like now. I have about 2.5 hours left of this reading challenge. I've read 5 more volumes I want to talk about. So first I read volumes 3, 4, and 5 of A Tropical Fish Yearns for Snow. I don't have much else to say about this except for I realized I didn't tell you what it's about. Basically, it's about this girl who has recently moved to a new town, I believe, and she is joining a new school, and she goes to like a meeting for the aquarium club here, and she becomes interested in that because she meets another girl there, and she joins the aquarium club, and it's basically a sweet high school Yuri story from there. This one is very, very slow paced, which is interesting because the volumes are super easy to read, but the pacing of the story is very slow. Again, I like the side character here more than the 2 main characters. She's just way more interesting to me, but she has been getting more of the spotlight as the volumes go on. Otherwise, there's a lot of exploration of loneliness in here. So obviously, our main character, she's lonely because she recently moved to this new town, doesn't have very many friends. But this character here, people kind of think of her differently than she sees herself, if that makes sense. They have expectations they placed on her that she doesn't really want to go along with. And even our other side character here, who is very outgoing and bubbly, even she's a little bit lonely. So yeah, overall, I'm enjoying this series. I wouldn't be reading it as fast as I am if I wasn't enjoying it, but not going to be for everyone. It's very slow paced, but it's alright so far. I'm probably not going to read any more of it today in this reading vlog, but I'll probably read it tomorrow, the rest of the volumes, so yep. Next, I read A Man and His Cat Volume 6. This has turned into being an actual music manga instead of just being a slice of life gag manga about cats. It's now has an actual plot. I mean, it always had some plot elements, but now it feels like it's mostly about that instead of kind of about that. There are still cute little in-between stories about Fukumaru and his adventures. This one is one of my favorites. If you can pause and read it. My cat definitely chews on cardboard boxes like that, so that made me laugh. There's a lot of moments in here, especially in the little in-between chapters where the cat does something. And it's very relatable because my cat does basically everything that this cat does. But yeah, I'm still enjoying this. It's a nice break from some of the high action manga I like to read. And it's cute and it's about cats, so what's not to love, honestly? And then after that, I read Blue Lock Volume 2. This continues the story from where we left off. This one is not as intense as the first volume, I would say. But there are a lot of interesting characters in here that I'd like to learn more about. Right now, we're still kind of exploring all of those new characters very briefly. This is very over the top and ridiculous. Not your typical sports manga, but I'm still enjoying it, so I'll keep reading it. Also, I really like how bright and obnoxious these covers are. So those are all the manga I wanted to talk about in this update. I'm going to... Okay, so as you just saw, the timer just ran out, and I have read 2 more volumes since the last update. The first of which was Helter Skelter by the same author as Pink, which I read a month ago, 2 months ago, whatever. This was way better than Pink, in my opinion. I gave this like 4.5 out of 5 stars, and that's a pretty high rating for me. This is basically about how toxic the fashion industry is, as well as like modeling, ideas of beauty that society places on women. This focuses on one woman, and she has gotten a lot of plastic surgery in her life, and now it's kind of coming back to haunt her in interesting ways. It kind of seems to affect both her physical body and her mental health, and also her attitude and her behaviors. She's basically obsessed with looking pretty, looking young, staying young, being a role model, but basically just being a model for people to look at, for young girls to look up to, but just because of her like beauty. She becomes really, really desperate and starts to do some crazier and crazier things. And yeah, I really liked this. The message here is pretty obvious. I don't think it's hidden at all, but I really like the way this was done. It feels almost a little bit sci-fi-esque. Not very much, but like a tiny little hint of sci-fi seems to be in here a little bit. Something interesting I learned about this just by reading it is it doesn't really end. I mean, the way it ends is satisfying enough, but it says to be continued at the end. So it seems like the author meant to continue the story, but she was involved in an accident right after this was published, and I think that cut her career short. But I'm really glad I read this. I'm glad the TBR jar decided I needed to read this month because I really enjoyed it way more than Pink. If the TBR jar didn't decide I was reading this, I probably would have put it off for another 4 years. But I definitely enjoyed this, and now I'm interested to pick up her other work that will be releasing later this year or next year. I can't remember. It's called River's Edge, I think. And hopefully it's more like this and less like Pink, but now I feel like I have to reread Pink to see what else I can get out of it that I didn't get out of it the first time. But yes, I would definitely highly recommend this if that sounds interesting to you. I think it's pretty well done. Some people might not like her art style, but I think it's fine. Yeah, I'm really glad I read this. I liked it a lot. And the last volume I read today was I Want to Be a Wall. This is about this gay man who is in love with his childhood friend, and this woman here who is asexual is what it says. I'm gonna go over that in a second. They basically get married to each other in a marriage of convenience, so they're not attracted to each other at all. They're just getting married to kind of satisfy their parents and society. So real quick, I want to mention the only word used to describe this character here is asexual. She's definitely also aromantic. In fact, I would argue that this manga focuses more on her aromantic side of her identity than the asexual side of her identity. I just want to mention that because that's a very important distinction for me and other people, and I haven't heard anyone else mention that. But I believe in Japan, they use the term asexual for an aro-ace person. I think they use a different term for someone who is just asexual and not aromantic. Anyway, that's just kind of vocabulary, but I felt it was important to mention just because the word aromantic is never used in this manga, but I really feel like it should be. But as for the actual story, I really enjoyed this. I liked learning about the two characters, what they've gone through. You kind of see some little flashbacks into their lives and what has led up to this point in their lives where they're getting married. I also forgot to mention that the female character is interested in BL manga and BL novels. She really loves that. And I'm not going to say why she likes that, because I feel like the explanation for that in the manga is really well done. I feel like I've seen some people have a similar reason for liking BL, but I've never seen that in a manga. His part of the story is also really well done. I really enjoyed that, or didn't enjoy it. It's kind of bittersweet, both of them, but I liked reading it. I gave this volume 5 stars. That's probably a little bit too high, but I feel like this representation is so rare in manga and novels and fiction in general that I just bumped up my score a little bit. Also, there's a little bonus story in here. It's just a couple pages at the end. It made me laugh so hard, I was literally crying. But anyway, I just really like seeing these two characters learn about each other. There's no romance involved at all. It's just them two learning about each other. They're living together now, so they kind of have to figure out their daily lives, just mundane things like cooking, stuff like that. And overall, I really enjoyed it, and I'm excited for volume 2 whenever that comes out next. Anyway, these are all the manga I read in these 12 hours. Technically 12 volumes, if I should even count Devilman vs. Hades Part 2, because I barely even read any of it. I definitely could have read more volumes if I didn't spend so long at Barnes & Noble, but it's okay. I got through some pretty thick volumes here, and I read some really fun things, some sad things, and everything in between, basically. Anyway, let me know what you thought of this video, if you enjoyed this kind of vlog format. I try this out every now and then. I like doing it. I just don't feel like my life is interesting enough to vlog, but I can talk about things I'm reading all day long. But yeah, that's going to be it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!